Welcome to Node Mode, the NFT podcast on digital art. We talk with artists, collectors, and reasonably intelligent individuals about all things NFTs. As usual, nothing in the video is financial advice. We're not financial advisors, and the NFT space is quite risky, so please remember to do your own research. And don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe, and share if you like the content. Today, we are joined by Eli Scheinman, who has an amazing title, I would say, the head of art at Proof. Welcome to the show, Eli. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing well, man. Just pumped to be here. Let's see. You said that your show invites artists, collectors. Where do I fit into this mix?
Yeah, well, you probably are all three, right? You're an artist, collector, and a reasonably intelligent individual.
Right,
right.
Yes,
I used to say the smartest people in the space, and then I just thought, you know what, we may want to broaden that definition, just a tiny bit.
I'm glad you introduced that caveat before I hopped on. So thank you.
No, absolutely, dude. So, man, I want to know how you went from wherever you were before to where you are now. And I did a little bit of sleuthing on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I found that I believe you have a certification called a holistic life coach. Is this correct?
This is true. Yeah.
Tell me about that. And do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, you look reasonably healthy. Let's see, man, I've had this sort of circuitous path, right? My primary interest 10 or so years ago was with health. I had some of my own health issues, and so I went super deep. And from that emanated, yes, this holistic lifestyle coach certification with this guy, Paul Check, who some people will know. I know your prior guest, Chris Bennett, he'll have a sense of who that is. And that was, part of a whole journey and a path that was the first number of years of my career, really. I started a couple of businesses that were oriented around health and healthy foods primarily, and then worked in Web 2, building mobile products, again, with that explicit focus on health. So Kevin Rose and I, worked on Zero, the fasting app, for many years, and an app called Oak Meditation. But that was all within this remit of health, and really emanated from my own health stuff way back. So, it's been an interesting journey. And I appreciate that you were on the LinkedIn, and I know that certification and that sort of line items at the very bottom. So you were definitely doing your research.
Yeah, thank you. That's super interesting. I mean, I've been meditating for I would say 7 years, 20 minutes a day straight. It's just
amazing.
One of those habits that just I picked up and I never let it go, because it's just it's almost like you don't know exactly how it's helping sometimes, and that's okay. And it feels good, and so you're like, this is a good practice. And, there's the more you go through all these phases of like, am I doing this right? And then you realize, wait a second, that's a phase. Like, it doesn't matter. You're taking the time. So anyway, kind of a cool, I feel like we've got a connection, because I had, unfortunately, I never had the Oak app, if that's what it was. I had Headspace for like 7 years, and then I was like, I'll just press a timer on my phone now and call it good. But
let me quickly pose a question back to you, if you don't mind. In this space, and with how crazy things are you still meditating? How do you find that time? Because I know for me, I wake up and it's Twitter, and it's OpenSea, and it's Discord, it's email, and I miss my meditation often. Are you still pretty good?
Yeah, no, every day. Like I think in the last 5 years, I may have missed like 3 days or something.
Damn, man. Congratulations. That's crazy.
I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. So here's what helps me now is what you're seeing here. I'm actually in my I converted my backyard shed into an office. And so I just come out here at some point in the morning before I start doing other stuff, and I just meditate, and then I move on. So that isn't, but it's highly recommended, folks. I just, don't know what else to say. It's a fantastic exercise and well-being. And I've had definitely my own health journey for sure. So maybe that's what leads us all to a lot of these things. But I want to hear, so this is how you got introduced to Kevin Rose. Was it through the meditation app that you started?
Yeah, that's right. So, I was doing my master's in a totally disparate field. I was focused on political ecology and learning about farmers in South India and the way that they use rice as a way to disrupt power dynamics there. So, totally disparate field. But
Yeah.
I'd followed Kevin's work for a while
Yeah.
from afar, and he put out a call. Maybe it was his newsletter, maybe it was Twitter, and he was looking for a researcher to help. Someone, he had a newsletter at that time that he was spending a lot of cycles on. He was starting to build these apps. He was looking for a researcher. I sent him a cold email, and in that email included a couple of things we had in common. Again, within this world of health, I think I mentioned forest bathing, which was a thing at that time, and he reached out, and we had a call. I remember that call, and I started working as I was finishing my master's with him, sort of very casual part time, couple hours a week, helping out in a variety of capacities. And then that started to scale a little bit into something that was part time. And then as I finished up my master's, I think a week later, joined full time to help on the Ocean Zero side. And initially, that was very much sort of customer experience, content. I didn't come from the technology background at all. And then over time, that evolved into a product role and then a more senior product role before I hopped over to Proof.
That is amazing. And so, were you kind of traveling on the same journey as Kevin Rose when it comes to the NFT side? Like, how did you start exploring this entire world?
Yeah, so this is sort of characteristic of Kevin. He's been an early adopter in many of these technological shifts and movements, and that's no different here either. So he was a year or two ahead of me, buying CryptoPunks and getting into the whole space and collecting. But we'd fostered enough of a friendship that I'd occasionally get these texts from Kevin like, "Dude, you got to pick up this CryptoPunk. Like, dude, like." This hoodie punk, it's 30K USD. Like, you got to get this thing. And I'm like, man, you're crazy. You're crazy. I'm not buying. Like, that seemed absurd at that time. Right now, we know, like, I have max pain for not following that advice. But then, I get another text a couple months later, dude, you got to buy this squiggle thing. You got to get this. And unfortunately, I listened to him after enough red pilling on the squigs to make that my first NFT purchase. But he was really the one who I saw, first collecting in a serious way, and that helped probably get me into the space and started collecting myself in a more thoughtful way. Also, Top Shot was, as many people experienced, was an onboarding mechanism to start playing around with what an NFT is. So Kevin was, to answer your question, a couple of years ahead of me in terms of playing around here, and that's been to his benefit, of course. With great upside, but still helped red pill me on the whole thing.
Man, so you started buying squiggles. What a great first purchase. Have you always kind of gravitated toward, art previous to this, or was this kind of a real turning point in your, collector's journey?
Yeah, I think in terms of a collector journey, definitely. Like this was the first time I took purchasing a piece of art as uh, a long term decision, and like truly collecting with that in mind. I'd collected baseball cards and done the collectibles thing in the past as a kid, but never sort of in a more serious way as an adult.
Yeah.
And then my brother is a practicing artist. This was always part of our upbringing and household and environment, and so I was immersed in the arts, but always at an arm's length. And so this was really the first time that I dove in through that new lens, which I think is so true of many in this space. Is like, we've had a curiosity. It's been part of our lives, but perhaps a small part, as we pursued a whole variety of other dimensions of our lives. And now finally, we get to really explore what it means to be a collector, to engage with artists, to participate in what it means to collect and view work and hear artist stories and the way that that comes through in their work. That's a common story, I think, in this space, which makes it incredibly special.
Absolutely. That's something that happened to me 100%. Like I always appreciated art before. And in fact, that was the reason that I was interested in NFTs to begin with, because I had seen my dad or my uncles collecting art. And, not that my dad was particularly great at investing, but he did really well on art because he had great taste and he just bought what he loved and he bought really good stuff that would fit homes, that he was working on. And then he would just, if he ever needed to sell it when he moved, all of a sudden it was worth more because it was just such a beautiful, spectacular piece. Obviously, that's not the case for everybody, but
Sure.
that kind of was what helped me to understand. Hey, there's like new art forms coming out in a way with technology that is transformative, and so we're able to collect in a new way and participate in an entirely new way, and that's what I think is just so great. And like even with Grails, like let's fast forward to Grails, because we got Brett here in the audience saying Proof Grails 3 was so fun to watch. Well done. I couldn't agree more. If anybody hasn't watched any of the Grails reveals, like I remember talking to so many people and saying like, wow, they put on a full-on production. Like this is fantastic. The way that you actually, what I felt like you did is you gave the you made the experience of the reveal and of the actual purchasing of the art commensurate with the level of the art that we're actually buying, like making that part of an experience. So kudos to you. Absolutely.
Appreciate that, man. I didn't realize we had live comments.
Yeah, we have a live comment section on the right side. If you can click on the live comments, yeah, it's fun. So if anybody wants to, sometimes I don't show them all. There's a guy named Joey Bada Boom. If he shows up, man, we don't usually show his comments, but shout out to you, Joey.
Yes.
Rocky, we got to say hello. He's a really
let's go, Rocky.
Ardent supporter for sure.
And Brett loved the Moonbird with the moon cap, so good. Yeah, man. I mean, in Grails 1, we had the reveal show, and it was kind of this. It was it was
very more like a Zoom call. Yeah,
it was like a Zoom
hey, what's
call.
up?
That's right. And then in season 2, tried to up level that a little bit. We had a set. We shot for a day. We had Kevin, myself, and Derek from Collab Currency. And if you notice, Derek and I sitting very close to each other on a couch. So that was one of the less than ideal dimensions of that. But
you were quite close. You were stuck. Was it you that was stuck in the corner? Like yes. I think you were not getting out of there, dude. Like there was no way you could move. You were stuck in that corner.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that.
But that's indicative of like an incremental step, an incremental improvement. So there were things we really liked about season 2, and I think it did a good service to the artists. But as we stepped away from that, there was a lot we wanted to do better for season 3. So we spent a lot of cycles internally and a lot of resources internally to make sure, to your point, Node, that we were treating the artists and the artwork in the way that we felt they deserved, and really showcasing it and putting it on a pedestal in the right ways. Yeah, here you go. So we've got the Grails page up now, and even here, this is a good example of, in season 1 and 2, we had a totally different visual language to this page, right? It was like strong point of view, lots of proof branding. And when we went to season 3, the idea was really, let's take a step back, have a more minimal aesthetic, and in doing so, really showcase the work and the artist by extension. And I think we accomplished that pretty well here. I think that's, in my mind, that's important both for the collectors who are in our space today. Of course, we want to build an incredible experience for them, but also this needs to be a visual language that I think the traditional art world can see and resonate with. We're not going to appease the sort of traditional modalities and ways of displaying art entirely. There's an opportunity here to do something disruptive, as we should, but there are lessons from the way that they've done things that we can take in order to play into that world just a little bit more. So you're looking at this great piece by MP Cause, and you know this node. You and I have spoken a bunch about editions versus series. You were giving me a hard time about that you didn't like editions. So I went to the drawing board, brought the team together. I said, okay, this node guy, he's after me. He's not into editions. We gotta come up with something, guys.
I love that. Yeah, that was like our first actual interaction on Twitter. I think you actually probably didn't know who I was until that point. And then lo and behold, like you responded. And I actually really appreciate, I was like, hey, this gets me excited because you were willing to engage in a conversation where I came out a little bit swinging, just because I have an opinion on things. And you were like, hey, like you bring up some good ideas and we're working on some stuff. And, one of the reasons why I had never purchased a Grails before was because I like an unknown quantity. And hey, I've had my opinions on open editions recently as well. But as a collector, I just personally don't like to collect something if I don't know what the quantity will be. So the changes that you guys made was fantastic. And I absolutely cannot applaud you more. This one here, this was a generative series, right, by MP Cause. This is the one that I selected. So I got my mint pass, minted one of these, and minted it's a gorgeous color palette. It looks a lot like that one. Not quite as, mine's a little bit more simple than this, but it has these kind of same colors. But absolutely gorgeous. So everyone that bought one, it's a one of one, right? The one of one of X style that we talk about. So I really like the way that you put this together.
Yeah, that was important, right? Not only to appease you, but but
you're welcome, everyone.
Yeah, but as we thought sort of broadly about what this collection, and when I say this collection, I mean Grails as a whole, all 3 seasons and the seasons in the future. How did these pieces feel collectible? And what are the levers we have to play with? And so, I think what you see in season 3 is a start, right? There's no longer any open editions. Everything was capped at either 50 or 150. And by extension, all of the edition sizes are quite a bit smaller than we saw in previous seasons. There's a world where edition size actually matters a little bit less, and collectability reflects other incentives, right? Like we've seen this with meme cards. Those are huge edition pieces. I think 1,000 plus, but they're collected and they're collectible because there's some additional utility there. And so I think all of these things are on the table to explore as we move forward. And as I look at the works that are within the collections of season 1, 2, and 3 at the moment. And there are some fun ways that you can play with what it means to hold pieces from all 3 collections as you go into season 4. Does that mean you get slightly different forms of access or early access? These are some of the things we can play with in addition to making sure that we're doing a good service to the work and the artist first and foremost. Like, just to double click into that node, it's hard for me to imagine a world where in Grails you would have a burn mechanism, right? Like that feels a little bit at odds with the whole messaging of what it means to collect a Grail if you could then burn it.
Right.
But all of these interesting levers and mechanics are sort of on the table as we move forward with this product in particular.
Love it. Yeah. And I think I totally agree on the burn concept. It's like, well, if the artists themselves had this cool idea that they wanted to do, but that's kind of one of my gripes against some of these open editions. Again, not all of them. I think, what ACK did was awesome. And same with Xcopy, amazing. And then now, though, it's not the artist's fault necessarily, right? It's like all the collectors now, we're collecting to burn something. So it's like, did we actually want that piece of art? Or did we just want to burn something? And look, it is what it is, and it's fair. People can do whatever they want. But
you know what I've noticed about you, Note, is everything comes back to open editions for you.
Yeah, right now I got to get that out of my head, right? Yeah, let's do a little bit of detox. I'm detoxing right now. That's for sure. Yeah. We do got a nice comment here. Eli contender for the best beard in this space. I think that actually is a very good candidate. You got
a lot of hard work.
Beard. And then we do got to say hi to Nucci, my guy.
Nucci, I don't know this. Who's Nucci?
Nucci.
Don't know this guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Who is that dude? Maybe I'll intro you guys.
We love the Nucci.
We do love Nucci. He's the best. Okay, so I want to learn a little bit more about you, like how you decide,
Yeah.
what artists make the cut, of
Yeah.
Grails. Like this seems
Yeah.
like you're a curator now, right? Is that what
Hmm.
you can kind of consider yourself as a curator? How do you do this?
Yeah. So, it's funny you say that. I probably wouldn't consider myself a curator because I think that that does a disservice to really serious curators who have, I think, um, in many cases, another level of thoughtfulness,
Mhm.
and set of considerations that often and probably should be entrenched deeply in art history. And so, like I'm a version of a curator, and the way that I think about it for Grails in particular is multifold. So, it always starts in terms of identifying artists for Grails in particular with the artists in our ecosystem already. So it's in conversation with them. Who are the artists they're collecting, they admire, they're watching, and so we start from there, right? And that's always an amazing pool of new artists to me, that we can draw on. And even if it's not like uh, as explicit as asking one of the artists from our ecosystem, who do you think should be in Grails? Although sometimes it is. It's also just following them on Twitter and seeing who are they posting. And that's how I discover many artists, I'm sure as you do as well. That's sort of like the best alpha in the space is just follow great artists and see who they're collecting. Um, and then from there it's like it's talking to the amazing collectors in our space, some who you've had on this podcast, I know, to hear again who are they collecting, who are they watching, who do they think really on that trajectory, in an interesting way. And then it is myself and Kevin and our own collecting and knowledge of the space, putting that final piece together. So like there are at least those three inputs in terms of, or buckets in terms of people that feed into it. And then there are these broader set of considerations around we want the right mix of slightly more emerging artists and those like, wow, can't believe that person is in this season artists. And we also want good diversity of type of work. And I think you saw that with this season. You have work from Yatreda that's this film more or less, and then you have something from Killer Acid, which is this illustration, and sort of have that in dialogue within a season, I think is important. And then diversity of background and representation also being another consideration. So if you take all of those things, all of those inputs, and then you add in artists' timeline and other commitments and what they can and
Who
can't
wants to
do.
do it? Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to do it? You end up with, I think, a pretty strong lineup in most cases. But as you can tell and as you'd expect, very much art, not science. And like to be frank, as we move forward, we've done 3 seasons now. As we get into season 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and so forth, we might have to change um, uh, those considerations somewhat, right? Like at some point, we're going to have worked with the top 20 artists, if you measured by, let's say, total sales in the space. And so, how do we keep this really interesting and still have those wow moments, and the quality of art and artist incredibly high? We have to maybe shift where we lean a little bit. Does that mean working more with traditional artists? Does that mean working with creators, whether it's illustrators or directors or cinematographer, people, other forms of creators doing their first NFT? All of those things are interesting to imagine in future seasons of this show.
Yeah. Do you have you laid out how frequently you are going to do Grails? I haven't paid attention, but thought, wow, they've already done 3. Like I would have thought, hey, let's just do 1 a year or something, But this
Yeah.
is great,
Yeah. The goal is to do 3 a year.
Okay.
That's the goal. It's a significant lift for us internally with 20 artists and at the production quality that we want to have and have now sort of set for ourselves with season 3. That's a major lift to do 3 times a year, but we think it's one of the keystone things we can do at Proof to really demonstrate to artists and collectors that this is there's a fun world being built here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Has it been 20 every time? 20 artists?
It was 20 in the first season, 25 in the second season, and back to 20 this season. But no, you could imagine, let's say we did, just making this up, season 4 had 5 artists, but it was entirely generative, right? Like that's a world that becomes interesting because everyone gets a one of one. Okay, so like inherently that's interesting. And then from a feasibility perspective, it's working with 5 artists and coordinating with 5 artists and not 20. So, you know, again, these are levers to play with to make sure that we can do these at a really high and effective degree.
Well, you know, I kind of like that idea. I'm a massive generative art guy. So
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
I'd be very curious. You know, we've talked about your background. We've talked about Grails. I want to know about what you like personally. You know, what you're collecting, how you kind of make decisions on what you decide to purchase yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad. I spend so much of my time now on these products, right? And
I know this is the curse of, yeah. As soon as you start working in the industry, you're like, well, I
that's
don't
right.
actually buy as much as I used to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You know, like a month before I really got heads down on Grails, you know, I was buying, I was selling some things, and I was just aware of what was happening in the space from a collector perspective, and through that lens, at such a higher degree than in the last couple months, to be frank. But you know, I'm, as you are, a massive Gen Art fan, and we have a great generative art group show upcoming in the next couple months. So I'm spending a lot of time looking at the work of those artists more recently. But you know, I'm a huge fan of people that are playing with the medium in interesting ways and are slightly subversive in the way that they're doing so. So, you know, like anything ACK puts out, Alpha Centauri Kid,
Wow.
I just love. Like I've got the
My
full
guy.
color study.
Oh, you do? Nice.
I got the full set. Um, and that's like just the way that he shows up in the space and plays with collectors and brings them along this journey. Like that's what I love. That's what I think more artists should be doing. And then you take someone like a Def Beef, like, you know, the way he again creates work that is a commentary on the space.
Yeah.
Here we've got the color study. This one on a crazy run. I think last week I saw
Yeah.
my
It
good
was like
friend
the last
Sam.
few days. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like maybe it's come down just a little bit. Do you have some of these?
Yeah. Well, I was feeling like a boss because while everybody was out chasing, you know, OEs, I was like, hey,
Mm,
who's done it well and you know, what collections do I think can stand the test of time, right? What artists do I
yeah.
really like? And so I came in and I put in offers. I got 4 in the last week and I got them for like around 0.25,
Mm,
0.3. I got a coral for 0.4. So
yeah.
yeah, excited to have snagged those before the recent run up. They
Yeah.
might dip a little bit again, but
That's
I
right.
just I love, I don't know what it is about these. I just really like them, you know? Like
They're so cool. And you know the backstory, right? You know, he minted the OE, right? And then he converted that to a
Max
CC0
Payne
version of
V2,
Max
right?
Payne
Yeah.
V2, and then you could burn that for one of these 10 colors. Do you remember? Because I know that not everyone burnt that Max Payne V2. Is that collection still out there? I know
I
he
think it still is, and Alpha Centauri Kid was, like, quite clear, like,
like you need to
nothing.
burn.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, "Look, you need to burn it. If you do not, like, it will still exist as
Yeah.
Max Payne
Yeah.
V2,
Yeah.
and if you're crazy enough to think that that's worth anything, go for it." And I
Yeah.
don't know that it is worth much, but I think it's still there to
Yeah.
my knowledge. But, I mean, what a cool, you know, like, experience to take your collectors through.
That's
And
right.
I didn't do it because 'cause I'm like, I'm not comfortable with what's going on here, you know, like, and but that's what was cool about it. He
Yeah.
was like making you trust him on his innovation and his experiment. And like, this can be a lesson to anybody. It's like, okay, well, if you like it, when all is said and done, go ahead and buy them on secondary when the
Yeah.
time is right, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. And I mentioned Def Beef, like I love his work for, in some ways, a similar reason. If you go to First Firsts, which was his conceptual art, well, I'll call it a conceptual art project or release from maybe last summer. I can't recall the exact date. This has come way down in price. But again, this is just him playing with the medium, this commentary on our space. And I think we need more artists who are doing this and being subversive. I don't really care about the value of these. I know some people bought maybe much higher, so they have a slightly different relationship with this body of work. I have a couple, but I love artists whose body of work really reflects this deep commentary and dialogue about our space. Right? It's not just another NFT. But there are these interesting layers to it. Some of these are amazing. And I'll see him post, I'll see someone tweet about, okay, this is the first something, and then he'll quote tweet it with a version of that with one of these. Pretty amazing.
Oh no, wait, that is genius.
Yeah.
This is fun, right? It's like it's a commentary on the space. This reminds me of Dubai, believe it or not, because like they're all over this idea of like, we have the tallest building in the world.
Yes.
We have the tallest 5-star hotel in the world.
Yes.
And we also have the tallest 4-star hotel in the world.
Yes.
And then we've got the world's fastest outdoor roller coaster and the world's fastest indoor roller coaster. Like they just go down the list, right? And so I think that is funny. I think this is great, the commentary. Okay, so we talked about ACK, Def Beef, which coincidentally we're both in the Grails 3, which is a fantastic artist to have there. Who else have you really liked or admired over your time in the space?
Yeah, I think a couple come to mind. I love William Upon.
Oh my gosh,
so good. Got to spend some time with him when we were in Paris in October, and he's just a great human, super fun guy, thoughtful. He was describing the way that he explores new parts of his practice, and he was describing it as these different doors. And so when he's working, he might encounter in an output as part of the code a new door. And so he decides, okay, does he want to go through that door and go further down that path? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. If he does, that, he starts there, and then that introduces a whole new set of potential doors to follow from there. And just the way he was thinking through his process and the way that maps to an output was super interesting. These are beautiful. This.
This is so I tweeted today, like what I've been doing, and I've just been focusing on the space for however long. It's what I like is these, what I call mid-tier art block collections, right? The ones that are around, 2 to 3 to 12 ETH. And I think, most of the most beautiful collections kind of sit in this range. And the only one that I don't have that I really want is the Anti-Cyclone, which I've been putting in offers. I need to start it again. So nobody steal these from me. Ellie.jpg. Wow, these look amazing. In fact, I continue to I actually thought that number 7 of Grails 3 was William Mapon, because he's been messing around with paint, this paint vibe. And I was like,
yeah, that's right.
Could be him. And either way, I love it. And turned out to be MP Cause, who I also love Chimera. I own a Chimera, and I continue to maintain that is the most underrated collection in all of art blocks. And look, if I'm shilling it, so be it. It's beautiful work. And I think he's a big up and comer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, who picked up a Chimera, I think today or yesterday, is Grant Yoon. He picked one up, and I saw that. Node in that window, I think you called it mid-tier. Sort of
only by price.
No, let's say in that maybe 5 to 10 or 2 to 10 ETH range. Memories of Chilin by Emily, like that's an obvious one.
I sorry, I just got to say it.
Do you have one?
I have a couple, and everybody knows that watches this show that this is my favorite collection. So,
incredible.
So PO, is always messing with me. He's like, let's see if you can go one episode without mentioning it.
We got it.
Yeah, baby, we got it back.
Yes, let's go.
Because I cannot. I think this is an absolute Grail collection.
Agreed.
It really is.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Have you seen her her so-called Genesis collection. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
Yes.
I forget what it's called, but I've looked
It's
at it.
yeah, it's hard to find. She released a project called Morphology, I think it's called, and
Sounds right.
it was with Block Art, and I don't know if it's going to be searchable by that title. Yeah, I think you have to go to Block Art,
Maybe
and
it's
then
this
yeah,
one,
there it
block
is.
art
Yep,
morphology.
yep, yep, exactly. And last time I looked,
Yeah, these are them.
yeah, that's right. So the floor on these, I think, was 0.25 or something. Now I think there's an important caveat here, which is with block art pieces, I believe they were somewhat co-created. So they were a little bit like QQL in that way, and that the person who minted got to play with the parameters before minting. So I mean, it sort of has this different provenance than maybe an Emily piece on its own. But
yeah, and I mean, this kind of goes back to right when we were having our nice debate. It wasn't a debate; it was a discussion on Twitter of me being like, "We need to put the artist first, right?" Because here I am, I'm like, okay, where is it in here? You know, like which
yep.
one? And that's not so much a collect. It's more of like, how do we display these things on the marketplace problem,
Yes.
right? And like, how do we visually see all the artists in one spot?
Yes. I mean, so, as we've shifted the Grails collections into more of the art blocks model, where there's a Grails by proof category, and within that category, there's each of these discrete collections per artist. And I'll tell you, I mean, the reason we did that primarily is that if you search now for, let's say, Snowfro in the OpenSea search bar, you'll see that his Grail bookends now pops up as a discrete collection. That was not the case before.
Yes.
So like that's a great improvement.
Yes, that's what I wanted. Yes.
So again, you get what you want. It's all for Node. But that all that to say, OpenSea still has so many constraints and limitations in terms of the way that you can create a user experience to really discover and navigate collections effectively. I think it's interesting. You saw Art Blocks, I think yesterday, roll out native marketplace and native purchasing. That was, to me, an obvious move because they had this beautiful UI. It was purpose built for viewing those works, and then they had this this call to action, right? This button that said, I think, view on marketplaces. You would tap that, and they would show you a couple options, OpenSea included. It just made so much sense for them to own that end-to-end funnel, let someone transact there where they can engage in the work or with the work most effectively. So, it's interesting. Is this
rolled out already, or did they just announce it?
I think it's rolled out.
I'm like trying to find it here as I'm scrolling around.
Yeah, I haven't tested it myself, but I thought it was live.
Maybe I need to connect my wallet and it'll all open up to me. But
and I see a question here from Dickens's, which I know the project.
Hey, look at that!
I know the project. I've had crypto dick butts, and I've had Pukenzas. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
There are three seasons of Grails to date, and then we'll plan to do 3 seasons per year moving forward, more or less, and around 20 artists per season.
I love that.
Sorry, Node.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more quick thing. We have this on the screen here, bookends. So the thing you see there on top of this generative algorithm output is a ceramic bowl that Snowfro made. And he actually created, so there's 50 of these pieces, and he created 50 unique bowls at his home. And we just got those in recently. We documented them all, and we're about to ship them out to the holders. So they're super cool. They have this Snowfro stamp on them. So each holder of one of these Grails gets this beautiful one-of-one, very cool Snowfro ceramic bowl.
That is awesome.
I mean, like today, that feels like super fun and cool. In a decade from now, like that might be a thing to have, a ceramic from Snowfro. So we'll see.
Yeah, one of remind me, there's 50 of these.
There's 50 of these, yes.
Yeah, one of 50 Snowfro bowls. Like that's pretty exclusive. No,
Yeah.
no, this happened to be the highest sale as well, if I remember right.
In
From
season 2,
Grails
that's
2.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And I think the Matt Kane piece from season 3 has been in this same range. It's been in sort of the 12, 10 ETH range on secondary.
Oh, has it, man? Yeah, that was a pretty epic draw, and that one went fast too. Everybody was onto it. Like
Yes.
they didn't know why, but they were like, "This is going to be the one," you know?
Yeah, like I think the degen in all of us is like, okay, if that piece is in Grails, it's probably not an emerging artist. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like who has the chutzpah, so to speak, to submit that, and what's the story behind it? So it's not too surprising that one went quite quickly.
Yeah, and just for reference, if you're watching, guys, this is the one. This number 3, proof of origin. I don't know that anybody actually call it. Everyone's just saying like, okay, maybe it's Elon Musk or
That's right.
Gary V. But did
Yeah.
anybody call Matt Kane? I don't think they did.
I didn't see any Matt Kane, and I'm super
Nice.
proud, Node. I think this is of all 3 seasons, this is the one where people probably got the fewest right, which is fun.
Oh yeah, when I came on your Twitter Spaces, I got exactly 0 of my guesses right. They were
Yeah.
all I was 100% wrong, which was kind of other than the killer acid one,
Yes.
which was that one was pretty straightforward. But
Yeah.
okay, we do have. I want to get into like your kind of like your kind of criteria or collecting style. But we do
Yes.
have a quick question
Yeah, I see that.
from Hakan. Your opinion on checks? I don't know if you've seen these by
Yep.
Jack Butcher.
Yep.
This one's interesting because it's finding continued success, which I love
Yep.
that it's doing that. What are your thoughts there?
So I've been tracked it too closely. NFT statistics. Sam on our team had Jack on the podcast, and that was a
Oh, we
great
did.
conversation.
I must have missed that.
Yeah. That was a great conversation, and he's been tracking it closely. And then we have another person on our team who, in our Slack, keeps calling checks the new squiggles. So he's super bullish. I think today, if I'm not mistaken, they're up even further. Is that right? They were at, I think, 0.65.
No, I think they're coming up on like 1 ETH, I think.
Okay, so that's so funny. At 0.6, I was like, this still feels like probably, wow,
1
over
ETH.
an ETH.
They just broke 1 ETH. Look at that.
Yeah, at 0.6, that still felt like probably a good opportunity to buy. And I guess it was. I didn't. But yeah, I haven't been following it super closely. I'd be curious from your perspective, Node, what do you think has differentiated this from some of the other open edition burns that are going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there seemed to be a lot of purpose baked in from day one, which was nice, right? Like, and that it was truly integral to what he was doing. And I'll display my ignorance. I didn't even know who Jack Butcher was, so I was like,
likewise.
okay, and turns out he's known. He's like a known figure, and so I just dismissed it offhand, like I do all sorts of things. But I do think that what I like about it, just from what I've seen, is that he did have a master plan, and that this commentary people are resonating with, versus when other artists are all of a sudden doing something and then they released it and they're like, oh, by the way, yeah, you can burn this for another piece. And we're like, okay, well, what's that other piece? Like, it's just, this is almost completely gamified, right, from beginning to end. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm going to be a collector necessarily, but I like the idea, and that he had thought it through from beginning to end. And that was one thing that 6529 he did an amazing thread on open editions, and basically just said, like, I hope all of these artists have a plan for this, not just doing one to do it. So
are you and I see we have a question there, but just quickly note, are you a collector of the Art Blocks friendship bracelets?
I have one.
You have one?
Yes.
You must have had 2 at one point, or no?
I had 4.
Oh,
and I'll be honest, I screwed that up in the biggest way. I would just like sold off a couple at the literal bottom when they were basically free. And I was like, I'll just hold on to one to have it. And I just didn't pay attention. I missed the whole narrative of like kind of the meaning behind it, and that Snowfro was involved. And I still think, I was right in thinking that they were running a little hot. They've now kind of cooled off a bit. and I wasn't actually the biggest fan of the art itself. So I was
Mm,
like, this isn't something that I would have sought out and said like, oh, I have to have this piece. But I
sure.
think that I like them. I think they're kind of cool and
Okay.
fun.
Yep.
But it's more of the idea behind it, right? That makes them
Yeah.
special. So
Yeah. I hadn't checked the price recently. That's sort of where I would expect it to be. I think what was the all-time high floor was maybe like point 0.6 or something, point 0.7,
yeah, I think it was
maybe
right
for a
around
moment.
point 0.7. Yeah.
Yeah. I was fortunate. I snagged a couple of the so-called Snowfro palettes
Oh, cool.
super early. So holding a couple of those, I think I have 15 or something bracelets.
Oh, dang.
So
Nice.
if you see me at Proof of Conference, I'll be a full arm of bracelets rocking.
Oh,
Um,
love it.
but yeah, there's something in my mind that's similar between the friendship bracelets in some respects and the open edition meta, which is like, how do you scale a community super quickly? And
Yeah.
I think the artists playing with open editions that are doing it well are doing exactly that. They're going from a collector base that's maybe in the hundreds to a collector base that's all of a sudden, in a couple hours, in some cases, in the thousands. And if they can service that collector base in interesting ways over time, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I think that's what enabled like Art Blocks was ready for this, right? Like they've got enough of a community and they've got enough of a collector's mindset that they actually uh can support this kind of large. I mean, look, they were given away to all the holders, which was so okay, that's number one, so much cooler. And like what a great just like it tells you a lot about who Snowfro is, what the Art Blocks mission is. Like they are mission driven. And by the way, they made a great amount of money by being mission driven because they cared about what they were working on, and now it resonates with everybody. So that's actually really cool, and I like your point about community, and that's my big concern for a lot of these artists is like, is this what you want? Do you want to try and make 20,000 people happy? And if so, go for it. But if not, like, you made some money on your OE, and then just be prepared for whatever comes next because collectors, right? Like now you've got 20,000 versus, a diehard base of 500 that really loved your work, maybe, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to see how that plays out. I think we're all watching it. But just last thing on the open edition stuff, it is fun to see some artists doing this effectively and starting to own themselves some of the gamification that previously was only really available in sort of the PFP communities, right? It's like, how do we leverage what's possible with NFTs and on blockchain to do something that is disruptive and new and empowers artists? And I think some of that is happening through open editions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think at that as a mechanism is awesome, and I'm so supportive of that from an innovation standpoint. We got a question here from Ellie.jpg, because this is a recurring theme on my podcast is
Yeah.
we end up talking about Tez a little bit. Have you explored the chain? Are you messing around over there?
Yeah, I've been collecting on Tez for a while. I've a
Nice.
bunch of Zach Lieberman
Yeah.
pieces there, a bunch of Nicholas Sassoon, a bunch of JJJJ Johns
Oh yeah.
as well, and a handful of others for sure. To be frank, and I've mentioned this before, I don't know if it's rational or not, but I've yet to make any big purchases on Tez. I've just had some reservations about that. Even like a Dragons by William Upon, who I know Nucci, if he's still listening, big fan of the Dragons. I think he has maybe a couple. Hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But that's been my one thing with Tez is I haven't really leaned in and spent like, a couple thousand Tez, for example, or more on a single piece. But the nice thing about Tez is you don't need to, right? You
Yeah.
can spend 10 Tez, 100 Tez, and get amazing work. So I've been playing around there for a while, but not jumped in to make it like a material part of my collecting.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and it's an interesting. I think there will always be a discount there, and that's okay. But if people are expecting, this totally equalization, the market's just not. It's just not happening. And but what I do find interesting is that almost everybody I have on this show that is interested in art is is buying stuff on Tez. And so it feels like it's like the artists market. You know what I mean? Like it's like the marketplace for those that like truly are in it. And so I would view Tez myself as the place where you go to learn about new artists and to be in the middle of this incubation phase. And then sometimes they'll break out. And if they do, like, congratulations on Tez. And then they move over to ETH and then go bananas.
I think that's right. I mean, and maybe I just need to spend more time thinking about this, but at least superficially, it feels like Tezos as a blockchain, and I hope I'm not offending anyone here, has like a little bit of an identity crisis. Like I'll see a highlight from the Mets game, and there's like these massive Tezos ads, and then I'll be in Miami, and we were at Art Basel at the fair, and there's this beautifully curated and like really large Tezos FX hash programmed installation. And it's like those feel at odds, and I mean they probably are, but I probably just need to spend more time thinking about the way that I want to collect on Tezos, because I think it's there's a non-trivial chance that it will be one of those things that is obvious in retrospect, and people will say, "Oh my God, I could have had that piece or worked from that artist for this." And I think there's a scenario where that's pretty likely.
Yeah, dude, exactly with you, because it's all of these grassroots factors are there, right? Where everybody that's like obsessing about art, and like I had Art Gnome on the podcast, which, if you're familiar with that guy, he is like the OG of OGs, right? And he is super active on Tez. And you're like, okay. And he's built software to help you find new artists. And like, you're like, okay. So all of these ingredients seem to be there, and yet we're still not giving the pricing at least the respect that it probably should deserve. Yeah. And it's because it's on Tez and because it's priced in Tez, actually. So I think things might actually change there, where it moves towards more of like a stable coin, based system. And if it does, that could be interesting. And there's no doubt in my mind, the use case for Tez is art. I don't know what else is going on that chain. I mean, if you know, let me know. No. But like it's just hilarious when I see Tezos as a sponsor on the Red Bull F1 car or whichever one it is.
Yes.
And I'm like, anytime I see that a blockchain sponsoring an event, I'm like, or like some kind of big sports thing. I mean, we now know that's kind of a red flag, right? Like maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
But like they've got such cool stuff going on. And you're right. There's this weird dynamic. They must have like, their biz dev side doing whatever they're doing. And then they're like, well, hey, guess what? This is what the chain's actually being used for. So let's do a nice installation. And I heard that one, like you said, was phenomenal. Was really great.
Yep. Yeah, it was outstanding. I mean, beautifully programmed and incredibly prominent. You walked into the main Art Basel fair space, and there was a speakers hall to the left, and then immediately adjacent to that, this massive Tezos FX hash space, and then you had to pass through there to get into the main fair space where all the galleries are set up in their booths. Tezos, I got to spend more time.
Yeah, likewise. Well, man, I really appreciate the time you've been able to spend here with me. Before I let you go, I always like to ask people on any advice, and your dog is also free to answer that question as well. But any advice you would give, for people looking around, like how should a collector or somebody that's just all of a sudden found themselves in this space, and hopefully some of the good things that have come out from these open editions is that people are like starting to they have an art collection. What advice would you give to collectors out there? Like, what should we be doing? What should we be looking at? And how should we like think about spending our money?
Well, I'm glad you gave the preamble up front that no financial advice.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. How should they be spending their money? I
think we can just delete that question. But like, how do you?
No, it totally depends, right? It's like, what are your goals? It's like, what's your time horizon? For me, I'm trying to collect pieces that I can hold for 2, 5, 10 years, right? It's like, how do I identify artists today who are maybe on that trajectory? And to do so, it's through those means that I mentioned before, following other artists, see who they're collecting, following amazing collectors, who are they collecting, and maybe it's not the Cosmo VVD collectors where you're going to get that alpha, because once they buy, it's over. But there are some others, you follow them, and there's opportunities to identify artists quite early. But it's all about, what are your goals? So for me, that's how I think about collecting. Now that said, like if there's a mint, and this is typically not in the art realm, but if there's a mint and there's an opportunity to participate in that and sell it, like I'm not opposed to that, or I'll do that as well, where it makes sense. But in terms of advice for other folks, I think it comes down to, what are your goals? It's like, you can collect, and I'll give you an example. You can collect an anticyclone, and do so because you're watching sell pressure and you think that in a week you can flip it for 2 ETH. That's one approach, and that works for some people, and they're really successful at doing that, and that maps to their goals. You can also collect an anticyclone and not care at all about buy pressure, sell pressure, and hold it for 5 years, and derive different types of value from doing that. So that's a bit of a hand wavy answer, but totally depends, I think, man.
No, I love that answer, because most people, they really don't. They just don't think about, okay, how much time am I really, wanting to hold
Yeah.
this thing? And for me, I like the long-term mindset. And so I mentioned on Twitter once, like one of my biggest mistakes was I started buying everything and thinking, hey, this is all long-term, when I'm like, dude, why was I buying all these PFPs? Like, they clearly weren't a long-term, asset that I wanted to hold. But I
Sure.
got kind of stuck in that mentality. So
Yeah,
yeah.
just quickly, I think you're touching on something that's interesting with the PFP side, which is another part of one's calculus for what to collect is, what are the communities
Yeah.
around that thing that you're collecting. So there's obviously Proof Collective is a thing, or it's like Moonbirds. It's like, what does that mean to hold one? And then you get in this community of art collectors. But there's things like Grailers DAO, right? It's like, okay, that's something I'm going to collect because of the community that it provides access to. And so that's this other dimension when I think about collecting, is the community that welcomes me into, by extension. Note, I see this question from Harry. What do you think of Thank You X? Big fan. Yeah, love Thank You X. He did this really interesting project with the folks over at Transient Labs. And if you don't know Transient, check them out. They're doing great work. At Proof, we're working on something fun with them now, which we haven't announced quite yet. But love the guys at Transient, and love Thank You X.
Oh, maybe a little alpha there. I
Little
like
alpha.
it.
Little alpha.
And I'm a huge fan of Thank You X. He was on the podcast, and I fell in love with him the minute he came on the screen, and he was wearing a hat. I don't know if you've heard.
The
So he was
squiggle
wearing
hat?
what? No, it was a hat that had, like, the NY Yankees kind of
Yeah.
in the middle, but an E and an A on the other side. So it was spelled out Enya. So it was like this bootleg Enya hat with
I
like
love
New
that.
York Yankees as the middle part of the N
I
and the
love
Y.
that.
And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, do you like Enya? He's like, I paint to Enya. And I was like, okay, we are best friends
Best
now.
friend.
Like, dude, now that you think about it, when you see his work, you're like, yes, that is an Enya
That
vibe. That
maps.
gives me Enya vibe. So in terms of holistic, kind of like good feeling music, man,
Yeah.
hard to beat Enya at her game, man, for
Well,
sure.
well, if we're gonna double click into and spend another moment on Thank You X's hat selections, every every picture I see of him, he's got the great squiggle hat on recently.
Oh,
So,
yes.
man, he must have quite the repertoire of hats. Those two as a start is pretty damn good.
Yeah, dude, just nothing but drip. Man, this has been great. Eli, thank you so much for joining the show. This
Yeah,
is fun.
likewise.
You guys can find him on Twitter, Eli Scheinman, head of art at Proof. Man, what a great gig to have, man.
Appreciate that,
You
man.
hold on to that one for sure. Thanks everyone. Another episode of Node Mode in the books. We're gonna let Eli get back to doing the good work of spreading digital art, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Appreciate you, man. Take care.